Good evening, and welcome to Armageddon Live, Series 2, Episode 33, Structure of Daniel 8 through 12, Part 5, on this 29th of May, 2020. I'm your host, Daniel Decrypted. I almost forgot that. It's been a little while since I put anything up. I think the last day was the 25th or something, 4 days ago. So anyways, I guess I should jump into this. Yeah, 5 days ago. 5 days ago, that's even worse. Alright, so I've been busy making pictures and stuff like that, trying to explain everything. And, well, let's just get me out of the way first. So, here, of course, is the structure that I've already shown you. There, so I've rearranged everything. So, yeah, so we have these. Let's look at the first, what is it, six layers here. We're going to skip the first one, the ram and goat. And we'll just quickly flip through these other layers because we've seen them already. So we have the fact that you have this little horn, king of the north, who attacks the south, Egypt. Right? This is not the same occurrence or same what is it? I hate it when I can't remember things. It's not the same incident anyway, but it's a similar thing because you have the same thing, north attacking south. Yeah, so that's the first layer. Then we go on to the next layer, wax great against heaven, against God, right? Magnify against God. Same parallel thing. In that case, it is the same thing. Now, of course, you only know this when you look at chapter 8 and chapter 11, because chapter 8 and chapter 11, well, chapter 8 parallels chapter 2 and 7. Chapter 11 parallels chapter 8 to a certain extent, but it's when you look at chapter 11 closely, then you see that there's a bit of a rearranging of things. It's not in a sequence. The events aren't sequential. In chapter 2, chapter 7, chapter 8, everything is sequential. But when you get to chapter 11, things have been encrypted, so it's not sequential. The only way you understand, the only way you can figure out what's happening in, or the ordering of things in chapter 11 is to compare it to chapter 8. And then you get these key images, repetition of imagery, or repetition of words or stuff that help you to figure out what the ordering of chapter 11 is. For the most part, it's sequential though. But there's a section that deals with the papacy, and that is not sequential. Alright, so anyway, so we will same incident. Then we go cast down the stars and stamped upon them, which is equivalent through chapter 12 to fall by the sword, by flame, and by captivity, and by spoil, talking about God's people being persecuted. And then we have the daily is taken away, take away the daily, obviously the same thing. The sanctuary is cast down, and a commentary on this says, or in addition to this says, here it says the place of the sanctuary is cast down, but you later on you read that the sanctuary is stamped upon. So obviously if you cast heaven down and the sanctuary is it's the heavenly sanctuary, then obviously the sanctuary falls down with heaven. So you can stamp on it. Yes, you step on it with your dirty feet, you obviously are polluting it. So that's talking about the same thing too. Alright, and host was given him, arms as an army shall stand up on his part. Same thing once again. He gets himself an army or host. Alright, so here's the gray layers now. The gray layer forms a parallel section, while the multicolored layer forms a chiastic. The gray as a whole forms a layer in the chiasm, but within that gray section you have all these parallel section. So you see transgression anyway. So we flip through those: transgression of desolation. Then in chapter 9 there's 3 words used equivalent to transgression: sins, iniquity, and then you have desolation, which is repeated 3 times. Then of course we have this guy who's standing on the water in the ulai, and then standing on the water that's in the river. I can't remember what the river is called now. Anyway, both cases a man standing on the water, and Daniel reacts in a similar way. He falls into a deep sleep with his face to the ground. Alright. Next, Persia. Interpretation of Persia. Or historically this is Persia, and then we have Grecia. First king, mighty king, is broken, and his kingdom gets split into 4. Then we have the fierce king of fierce countenance or face, and then we have face repeated 3 times. Then we have heart and peace, and so we have peaceably and heart, hearts, and heart. Heart is repeated 3 times in chapter 11. Alright, and finally we have the section that I hadn't got to. We have the middle section, the Babylonian confusion, or what I called it back here was, well anyways, it's Daniel's prayer. Yeah, so Daniel's prayer for his people, right? So we know that this is part of the chiasm because we have, we have at least 3 different things that are repeated in a chiastic structure. So we'll quickly look at those. Even by departing from thy precepts and from thy judgments, which has a parallel, thy law, we transgress thy law, even by departing. So once again, departing from precepts and judgments, and on the other side is law. So that's obvious. Neither have we hearkened, neither have we obeyed. That's the same Hebrew, just translated differently. And then of course it talks about God's servants, the prophets. And finally we have in the center, we have, but unto us confusion of faces. And on the other side, confusion of face. And of course in the middle, and in this center it says, thou art near, and that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven them. And what country had Daniel's people been driven to? Babylon. And it's interesting to note that Babylon comes from Babel, at least according to the Bible. The implication is there. And Babel, of course, in Hebrew means confusion. So this is all tied together. So Daniel's prayer is that his people will turn from their ways, that is, from disregarding God's laws, his judgments, his, what's the other word that was used? That they will believe and follow his servants, the prophets, and then they won't be confused of face anymore. They won't be in Babylon. And if you look in Revelation, of course, this idea is there also because we have Babylon once again. So following the parallel, or the historical history of how God's people got in Babylon, or following the story that we get in Daniel, we have God's people, the Israelites or Judah, being brought into Babylon. And the same thing has happened in the book of Revelation. But in the book of Revelation, it's God's church that has been brought into Babylon. So just as Daniel prayed this prayer so that God's people, the Jews, would follow God's law, and they would obey his prophets, and thus they would lose this confusion of face and be let go or allowed to leave Babylon. So it's the same prayer that we need to be praying now. We need to be praying the exact same prayer. Alright, so here again, once again, is the structure. So we have, if you look at the center part, departing from thy precepts and from thy judgments, and then either have we hearkened unto thy servants the prophets, and then confusion of face. So Babylonian confusion. That's the result. And as it was in Daniel's time, it is again. So we need to be following Daniel's example. And there, of course, is the layer, the gray layer. The parallels outside of that. And then we finally have the outer multi-layers of the, what's it called? Chiasm. Alright. And this, of course, that entire structure, at least one of the other important thing that comes out of it is not only the prayer of Daniel in the center, but then we have this outer important layer too. And what do we get from that? We get that, well, it's something that comes out in Revelation, is that the center of the judgment, which is happening on Mount Zion, in the heaven's temple, is that there's this great controversy. That's the center of the judgment, is the great controversy between the ram and the goat, or Christ and Satan. Now, what are those other pictures that we have in Revelation that show that this is true? Well, first thing, we have the Lamb standing on Mount Zion. That, of course, is the glorious holy mountain. And this is the other parallel, a lamb as it had been slain. And this picture is coming from where God's throne is, and God's throne is in the temple. It's in the most holy place, the Ark of the Covenant. So these are two images that parallel what we just found in Daniel. And of course you can ask why or how do we know that, say the ram is Jesus. Well, you already have an answer here. The lamb. Well, there's some other things. Well, I guess actually I will do the rest of it tomorrow. But there you have a little taste of things. So once again, of course, we have these two pictures. We have the lamb that's standing on Mount Zion, which is the glorious holy mountain of Daniel 11. And then we have the fact that the lamb is as if it's been slain. And of course in Daniel the lamb is actually dead. Or the ram is dead. It's been killed by the goat. And of course in Revelation this is happening in God's presence. It's in his throne room. And his throne room is actually the most holy place of the sanctuary. So indeed this is all happening as I said. And historically, of course, we know, well, I could go right here. This is an image of, or this is a model of Jerusalem. We're looking somewhat northward, or almost northward. And what you're seeing that's all fuzzy, that's David, the city of David. That's the city of the Jebusites. That's what's it called? Anyway, it's the one that, it's how Jerusalem started. And then in Solomon's time, they built the temple up on the top of the mountain there. So Psalms 48:2 says, Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. And what's on the sides of the north? It's the temple. And why would this be connected with heaven? Because we have oh no. I guess I better go and let me go and shouldn't even have done this. Should have just left this till later. Alright. Since I started it, I might as well do a little bit of it. Oh, did I even... Yeah, see, I haven't arranged my stuff properly. So that's why this is not a good thing for me to do right now. Alright, so I guess we're gonna stop this tonight, because that's enough. You shouldn't... Well, it's 9:30. Yeah, so that's enough. I mean, for now, you've seen at least the complete structure of Daniel 8 through 12 now. Of course, just for the fun of it, you know. And as I said, that structure is there to reinforce this fact that the ram and the goat are fighting, or that fight between them is the central point, or the main point of the judgment. It's not about judging us, it's about judging Satan. And of course, that was, as I said before, that's centered on the cross. That's where that fight, that was the center of that fight, or the main, the focus, there we go. That was the focus of that fight. Happened at the cross. That's why it talks about the ram being killed. Only problem is came back to life. A problem for Satan, not a problem for us. It's good news for us. Yeah, so what was I going to do? Oh, I was just going to take a quick look at our... Yeah, so you'll notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 layers on the outer. Then we have this 8th major... So we have these 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 that reinforce this outside one. And then you get the 7th gray one. But that 7th gray one, of course, consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, another 6 there. So you've got 12 layers. 12 layers that enforce the outer layer, the 13th layer. And then, of course, this center layer here actually is at least 3 other layers. 3 other chiastic layers. Because we got even by the departing from thy precepts and from thy judgments. And then we have have been hearkened unto your servants the prophets, and then we have confusion of faces. So yeah, there's another 3 in there, and then 6 and 6. Right, 3 and then 6 and 6, and that all reinforces this. So that's 15 layers that reinforce in the 16th layer on the outside. So we then see that there's something really important about this outside layer. There's something really important on the inside layer. Actually, I sort of said this somewhere else too, that you've got 2 types of chiasms, where you have something that's, well, I don't know. So anyway, the thing is there is an important message for us in here to follow in the footsteps of Daniel, and there's an important message here in that the center of the judgment is not us. It's this great controversy between Satan and Jesus. And as I said, yes, we need to end it here, because as you saw from my slides, they're sort of a mess. It's because I'm not quite sure exactly how to do everything quite yet, so rather than end up messing everybody up and mixing everybody up, then I might as well go and... But at least you've seen the complete chiasm of Daniel 8 through 12 now. So I hope that was somewhat interesting for you, and I hope to see you again. God bless, and see you tomorrow night.